6 o'clock. Welcome to the, Marine Advisory Board meeting for Thursday, November 2nd. Nice to see everybody. If you would, Carla, roll call, please.
Mr. Harrison,
Here.
Mr. Flanagan, absent. Mr. McLaughlin,
Here.
Mr. Lynch, absent. Ms. Chirelli, absent. Mr. Brunel, absent. Ms. Norvell,
Here.
Mr. Franks,
Here.
Mr. Boyer, absent. Mr. Knott,
Here.
Ms. George,
Here.
Mr. Washington,
Here.
Mr. Revolt,
Here.
Mr. Walker, absent, and Chair Whitten.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Sergeant O'Neill was, I reached out to Sergeant O'Neill. I was joking before at the boat show, and I'm like, I'd love to see if our dear friend Travis was working. He texted back and told me where to meet him. Although he didn't tell me he was actually on a boat working. So while we're all enjoying the boat show, the other end of the table was hard at work. Tell us how it went. Tell us how the previous month went, if you will.
So the boat show went on our end went well. Not too many issues. The normal people trying to sneak on the tender docks or whatever, but things like that. But other than that, I mean, the weather was nice for the temperature for the wind, but it made fighting the current and the wind for 12 hours a little taxing, I would say. But all in all, the show went good. My guys worked hard with that Super Yacht Village at Pier 66. Actually had to get a fourth boat out on the water for a couple days to cover that because a lot of people were just like blasting through the 17th Street Causeway. So I put a boat down there. So next year, we'll learn some lesson with that and probably have a fourth boat out for at least show opening because our detail starts the weekend before, but then the show opens that Wednesday. So around that time, we'll probably have a fourth boat out there. So there's three. But other than that, I thought it went well. No real issues out there. Everybody was pretty good.
What type of just because we're all little kids here, what type of commitment is there from the police department as well as other agencies? I mean, every agency possible is there.
Yeah, so I'll speak for the Marine unit first. We have so 7 guys and me, all 8 of us worked. Usually your shift was between 9 to 11 and a half hours every day. 3 boats out there every day, especially at the show opening. As far as the other side, so they have a contingency that just does security for the show itself. And they have another contingency that just does traffic for the show. So when the detail opens, they put it out obviously to all of the department and a lot of city workers that do the traffic detail. And then they try to fill it with our people. And then whoever doesn't get filled, they'll reach out to Wilton Manors or BSO or another agency to see if they want to come and work it. So it's a lot of people.
And the feds are there as well?
Usually the feds will be there for like FAA's there for the drone stuff. Usually any big event, you'll have a couple FBI guys will be there that do like bomb stuff and radioactive materials, and state troopers will be there for that as well. A mix of people just that has specialty jobs that just help out with it.
Anything new? Any losses this past month? Garmin's, anything else missing?
Yeah, so we had actually, the day after the show, one of the boats in the show went back to its dock in Lauderdale Isles and had both our garments taken that night. Unfortunately, that's the only one we had all month, and it was the last day of the month, but they were broken into and taken. There was fingerprints pulled. Don't know yet if they're the bad guys or the boat owners or someone allowed to bid a boat. The video was having, the day we went out to the video was having an issue that they had. They were working with ADT to try to get the video. The person that lived there was unable to retrieve the video. That's the only real thing we had as far as crime for the month. On a good note, when I spoke last month about those 2 catamarans that were stolen. So we had the one that was recovered by the sheriff's office up in Pompano. And then we thought that maybe the one that was then taken a couple hours later at Pier 66 was maybe the same people, since it was the same style of boat. So we were able to get the suspects off the first boat that they landed in Pompano. And then we were able to tie that to the vessel that the name of the boat was, I think, Tifosi, was stolen, Pier 66. So the detective got a warrant put out for those 3 people, and they had a small child with them as well. And then the boats, AAS turned on a couple times. The last was Mexico. But when the boat pulled into Belize, and the officer working the dock thought they were suspicious and ran the boat and found it to be stolen, and took those 3 into custody. And then it turns out that so they were able to recover the boat, hold them for detention and transfer back here. And also the child, they're investigating whether the child was maybe even like a parental abduction with the child as well. So I haven't heard anything past that, but they're being held in Belize right now. But the boat was recovered, they were taken into custody, so that's good news.
So overall, pretty decent month as compared to other ones with
Yes.
thefts, et cetera.
Yes.
It's funny, all of a sudden, we're sitting here in the beginning of November. The Thanksgiving is coming and we have the Christmas boat parade. I don't know the date this year, any special
16.
preparations for you this year?
The only thing different from our normal, I don't say normal, is this will be my second year as supervisor for the boat parade. And the only, if you call it changes I'm making, I'm gonna try to get more vessels from other agencies. All my vessels will be out there, of course, and then I'm trying to get a few more vessels from other agencies to help along the parade route, just to keep the spectator boats out of the way. Which you'll have people, I mean, they'll anchor in the middle of the channel, and parade's coming and they're moving into the parade. You have all kinds of things. So I'm trying to get some extra vessels along the parade route that can just keep the people anchored where they're allowed to be anchored and out of the parade once the parade gets there. But other than that, it's, all my guys will be out there. They'll have a partner in each boat. So we'll have 16 officers just doing marine unit stuff, and the whole dive team will be out there. A couple SWAT guys will be on one of the boats as well. But yeah, pretty much the same stuff every year.
Thank you. It's certainly some of the most exciting times for us. Anybody have any questions, Sergeant O'Neill? Thank you.
What's a
So,
good place to anchor to watch the boat show?
Nowhere.
Show with the post.
I would stay with Mielo, stay from there, because you already have boats anchored north of Mielo, stay with them there. Middle River is decent, Sunrise Bay, decent. Those are probably the best places to go. It won't be too crowded. The Triangle, no, stay with me.
thank you again. So, item number 5 was a update on Las Olas Marina. That has been pulled. It was pulled late, so Andrew did not change the agenda, but we're gonna turn it into something a little different. We've got 2 items to hear. One is a quick introduction to Marco Aguilera. He tells me he's related to Christine Aguilera. Marco is Code Compliance Officer, Development Services Department, City of Fort Lauderdale. He's the guy that we're all looking forward to meeting. We've talked about the fact that the city has made a real commitment with code enforcement, and here's one of the guys who's in the trenches every day. Marco, come and introduce yourself. Come sit by the table for a minute.
Hello, everybody. Mark, like he said, Marco Aguilera, City of Fort Lauderdale Code Officer. I am assigned to the code boat. We go out and patrol the city Mondays and Wednesdays. We are responding to a slew of complaints, everything from derelict vessels to seawalls and disrepair to commercial vessels at residential properties, vessels encroaching into the waterways as well as into the neighbors' yards. Pretty much anything you can imagine, except the really fun stuff that he gets to deal with, it comes to us. I do have a bunch of business cards that I can give to everybody, so you guys can shoot me questions, complaints, anything you have throughout the city. And I did bring some flyers with our common code violations.
Has it been updated?
It is pretty updated, yes.
We'll pass it.
And I got a bunch of business cards. Yes. It's coming around the table.
So when does somebody call you? And when do we not? Do we bother you? What's an issue that really is a front burner issue that we can reach out?
I think probably our most pressing matter would be vessels encroaching into the waterway so that it doesn't hinder traffic, whether it's in the river or even just down a residential canal in the back. And then most of the time people end up calling PD with derelict vessels or vessels that are taking on water. they are a great point of contact. We're also a good point of contact with that, whether it's the owner refusing to remove it and we have to abate it by removing the vessel, or whatever actions need be, but we pretty much handle anything. I mean, there's not a bad time to call us. We can handle pretty much everything.
What about a legal discharge? How do you even begin to deal with that when you see it floating on our boat?
The problem is we have to prove what vessel it came from, which is pretty much the issue every time we get a call like that, is proving what vessel it came from. But we do have environmental crimes detectives. I just have to get it documented, some sort of evidence of where it came from. If I can get that, we can definitely get it taken care of.
So are you out just, are you proactively out on the waterways or just responding to calls?
So since we started, we've been pretty much reactive because of the amount of complaints that were coming in. King tides swamped us with the amount of complaints, whether it was seawalls in disrepair or seawalls breaching. Now it's starting to slow down because king tides are kind of coming to an end in the next month. We'll be getting more proactive with that.
Well, this is outstanding for all of us. Does anybody have any questions for Marco first?
Question, when you're saying the maintenance and stuff on the seawall, actually Fort Lauderdale does not even require a seawall. I mean, a natural berm would be fine. So if somebody's seawall falls down and they decide just to remove it and stuff, they're fine because they can put mangroves there or do whatever they want. So there's a lot of places in Fort Lauderdale now, if you travel around, do not have seawalls. So again, when you have a rainstorm or anything else, that's the same thing as your pollution thing. Where does that pollution come from? Does it come off of the natural berm or does it come out from somebody's seawall leaking? You people, the last time I seen you, do not go out when it rains or there's bad weather. And that's when you find out all of the problems, I said, with the seawall. Obviously, I said, we're going to be fixing that within the next 11 years or something with raising the seawalls. And I would imagine from what I understand is when you put an addition on top of a seawall and stuff over there, that seawall has to be certified that it can hold that weight. And it, not only a marine contractor can't do that, but it has to be a certified marine engineer. I said, that's the latest that I found out when you go in there. And that which constitutes a problem because as far as I know, Fort Lauderdale does not have such an individual. So it would have to be a private person that somebody would get out. But the problem that I was saying is same thing with besides the maintenance program and stuff over there, when you're traveling around over there, I just find that it's hard at this point for you guys to look as far as where the pollutant and stuff is coming as far as the seawall is concerned. So I said, good, they got you in there to looking around for that stuff. I also found out one other thing, which a lot of people may not know, is you have to have an address on the back of your thing. Most people do not realize that whatever address is on your street, the same address has to be on the back of your canal. And I see going up and down, I don't see that happen.
Yeah,
So that would be a
so
violation too, right?
it would. It's a violation though that pretty much, I'd say like 85% of the houses in the city of Fort Lauderdale have. So we are addressing it as when we have another violation at the property or a complaint for anything else, that's when we would address also the making them add the house numbers. If I went and started opening up cases for house numbers, I would never leave 15th Street. I couldn't leave. So,
We have an ongoing problem with renting the docks, people sleeping over among Lauderdale harbors. We have 3 houses nobody lives in, but they have 3 and 4 boats docked up. And the other part of that is the maintenance is being done there. 3 months ago, we caught a guy grinding gel coat in the bay in Carlotta River, if you know where Carlotta River, it's down the street, covered with dust. And we called the police and they stopped him. But we're still having problems with those people at the end of the west end of the 14th and 13th Street. And sometimes there's no trucks, but Nobody lives in the houses. And yet, during the day, you'll see 10 trucks there doing maintenance. Those are 10, maybe more people that aren't residents working there. And this is a residential, and that's a commercial business they're running. And so
All
we've been.
good reasons to call code.
Okay,
And we
and we
the
have, we
resources
kind of,
To come
we-
back that.
we had some other issues and we had to back away from that, but we're coming back at it.
So that would be great. Knowing somebody to call, I think is terrific for all of us. We had offered to Marco to return monthly. Again, totally your call, but you are welcome to a seat at the table, participate, to share, update us, etc. Andrew, I think if it's okay, we can include Marco in some of our correspondence and mailing list, and we'd love you to join us because your feedback to us is extremely helpful.
Mhm.
So we thank you very much. I think Elizabeth. Yes, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut it short by any means. Elizabeth.
Yeah, I just had a question. I live at the Portofino, Valencia Street.
Okay.
And on the end of that street, the last couple days, there's been at least a dozen dinghies tied off to a street sign. And they're not owners of the property, they're boat people that are out there, and it seems to have increased a lot, and in fact, some of them have attempted to tie off to our docks, which we've obviously gotten rid of them from doing that. Is that something that we should be calling you guys about, or?
So that one would more than likely be a PV handled issue.
See, passing the buck.
Nice background on that.
Just
So,
kidding.
so just so you guys know, the things that I can handle are things where the property owner can be held responsible for. If someone just shows up and ties a boat up to a pole, that's gonna be a police matter. If it's the property owner that is causing the issue or something on his property that's causing a nuisance or causing a violation, that's something that I can handle. I can definitely move forward with that. And then as far as the people doing work on vessels, that is a uphill battle because I stop them every single day.
Yeah.
Every day, and you'll be back in 2 days and they're there doing it again. It is very hard, and the biggest thing I get is that they can't get a space at the marinas anywhere in Fort Lauderdale. All the marinas are always full.
I'll agree with that. It's kind of hard to get a good mechanic and.
Marco, I have one other question for you. And 2 months ago, we approved, actually, I should say the commission approved a variance that enabled the boat and the furthest obstruction to go out in the river to 50 feet. And supposedly it was put on a deed that the boat could not be out, or any structure could be out more than 50 feet.
It was put on the resolution that was adopted and recorded in the public records.
Right
So
now,
anybody purchasing that property will be placed on notice. It can't go out beyond 50 feet.
and I'm saying is, how do they know these properties? In other words, do they have a list of all the properties that would be in
And
there?
this is the first one that was done on.
So when he's cruising around over there and he sees the boat out there and it's 60 feet, that's out on the side. How does this individual or his outfit, how do they know that that's in violation?
He would need to know the resolution, but the other part of
Right.
the thing is, what we tried to do, but we were unsuccessful, was to make the mooring pile the beyond which the bow of the boat could not project. And they didn't, that one didn't work, but that's where we're trying to go in the future.
Well, that's the point that I was
Yeah.
trying to cross. I said, I'm gonna tell you, I've been on the advisory board and all for 20 years. And in that amount of time, I've seen people right over here swear up and then, given their firstborn and everything else, that the boat would not exceed in that. And I will say this, when I went around and checked that, 100% of the time the boat was out further than I promise won't be out. And now, these people that have had these boats and are already out, see, there's no way that he can enforce that, because at that point, it was legal, correct? In other words, the structure was actually where the permit was taken. Then they put a boat out there, and the boat, prime example is where the Coral Castle is and stuff over there. They were saying that the boat was 70 feet. They got an 80 footer in there or something over there where it's out. So that what would determine that it's a hazard to navigation when you're cruising up in the river? They're less than the 30% of the river, which makes it legal. They're less than the 30%, but they're not in compliance with the variance that.
If they have a resolution that was passed by the commission that says they cannot be more than 50 feet, they would be in violation.
I know they're in
of the
violation.
code
How,
now.
how would you know that?
I would not.
That's what I'm trying to
I
say is,
would not. If I had a list or if someone filed a complaint formally about that property, and this is the resolution that was adopted, it says 50 feet, can't be over, then I can go look for the resolution, but I wouldn't know that it exists.
Will supply it to me.
Yeah, I think everything comes back to, every time we talk about the new river, et cetera, it always comes back to enforcement. You know, so we are trying to rethink navigation on the new river, but we could sit here and puff ourselves up and tell what a great job, but if you don't know what's going on, so.
That's why I want to make it a point to come to these
And I was gonna
meetings.
say, all the more reason for you to be, because honestly, when we're discussing this, your feedback about the new river will be really helpful.
Well, whatever you guys are discussing, I'm the one that ends up enforcing it or not
Exactly.
enforcing it. So
There you
I would
go.
love to know what's going on in
There
the
you go.
river.
What do you say, Stephanie?
Hello, everyone. I'm Stephanie Bass. I'm one of the supervisors for the city of Fort Lauderdale. I'm actually the supervisor over districts, commission districts 1 and 2 for waterway enforcement and a little of everything when it comes to code enforcement. But yes, we have no problem with it.
We can have them
Making
here,
sure that Marco is here monthly.
and it works both ways. If we can assist your group in some ways, it's a two-way street, but this would be terrific for us.
And you gotta bring the snack next one.
So I think Bob said we're done with Marco. We're gonna move on to something else. Again, we don't have the Las Olas Marina, but I want to take a second to segue to something extraordinary that happened. One of the things, and Barry Flanagan is not here, Barry had pushed for years that we need a new bathymetric study. In our discussion about navigation on the new river and trying to understand what does and doesn't work, it all comes back to the fact that we do not have a current bathymetric study. Well, it's happening, and it's happening because of the efforts of Patience Cone and our John Lusker. With respect to details, they are, if either one of you perhaps share just kind of a progress report, so I don't fumble, if you don't mind, but this is giving these two guys a pat on the back, because this is record time getting something like this. Would you give us a quick update, please?
Morning, good afternoon, patients. What happened was I requested a quote. My board instructed me to look into the options and what was possible. So I requested a quote. And it seemed reasonable. I have a monthly meeting with Anthony Fajardo. So I said, how can I think we should have, everybody should have a little bit in the game. And I had reached out to find to see if they would make a grant available to do the project. And they came back and said they needed an interlocal agreement, which a county or city had to sign. So then it was turned over to your department, Jonathan, and he was given the direction to fill out the grant application, and Bob made sure that we were all on the right side of the rules. And find his meeting on the 17th, so we pitched it as fast as we could so that we could get it on there and send it to the 17th, so we wouldn't have to wait another month. And so that's where we are on the 17th. It'll go before the fine commission, and if they approve it, then we'll just move on.
That's outstanding. Your efforts are just truly extraordinary. There is a discussion. There's a proposal from Terra Aquatic, and it kind of outlines what the study is. And basically, it's the same thing that any other vendor will be requested to do. And it's they're basically the survey, bathymetric survey is 6.5 miles. So I assume once we have that, then we'll be able to really talk more properly about the correct things. And what's the timing on that, do you think?
Right away.
We'll get it right away.
once we have everything signed, because I can't spend money until everybody is
Yeah.
on board. Because they reimburse that they approve, they have to approve the project. I don't think it's really not a long process. It's, I expect it's not more than a week.
I just one of the most positive things, John.
No, it's not that way. Sorry, tensions, but
Okay.
what will end up happening if the plan is, if you guys look at this memo, what we're submitting combined is this, basically it's a letter. We wrote, there's no application for an interlocal agreement. So what it'll probably be a letter with this attached from the city manager requesting this. And if it gets there by their board meeting, it'll go on that meeting. If not, it'll go on the next. And then once we do that, they'll draft an agreement. We have to wait for that to come. And then that agreement will have to go back to the commission to be executed. So we'll have to go through the whole process of the CAM and getting the agreement on there, and then we have to wait for it to get signed. Once it's signed, then we probably end up having to get 2 more bids. We have 1 bid that we used for this particular application. We'll need to get 2 more in order to move forward. So
This is a $7,000 expenditure.
That's 50%.
Pardon me?
That's 50%.
well, but
Oh, okay.
it's necessarily the money. It's the entering into the agreement.
The process.
Yeah, it's the process.
And for me, because I'm new here, this is what mapping the bottom of the river?
Yeah. Yeah, and we go through the same process for the 1.5 million that we got for the Kings Landing Marine. So it's really just the process, not the amount of money.
So the company doing the work will take a week, but groundwork to get there will take months.
But you need us.
Yeah.
You need us.
Yeah.
Otherwise, there ain't enough of it. Doing all that,
Yeah.
it's only 13 grand. Why, go for it.
Truly, we could, but we need buy-in from everybody. This board that makes the final decision, and the city needs to be at least in the play somewhere.
We're the access to the grants.
Yeah, and the fine director is in our group as far as for the New River study as well, so he suggested us getting money as well. So.
Good. So I think Patient's point is that the city needs to have some skin in the game. It makes perfect sense, but there's a caveat to this that we're gonna obviously talk about later on, and that is the fact that our good friend Bob Dunkel has given us what is referred to as zoning in progress. So we're not overly concerned that we're gonna have to deal with a waiver. So if this takes a little time, it's not a major issue for us.
That is correct.
Okay, let's move on. Unless anybody has any questions, et cetera.
Maybe someone from the board wants to know what zoning in progress is. Does everybody understand that? Okay, let me just pretend that you don't.
Please.
Okay. We've got to take the moratorium ordinance and go to the planning and zoning board first. Then, once they recommend that it doesn't violate anything in the comprehensive plan, it goes to the city commission, has to go there twice before it's adopted as an ordinance. There is a concept at law called zoning in progress, where it has been discussed by, in this case, the city commission, numerous marine advisory board meetings, been worked up by staff. They actually allow you to freeze the processes involved in the waiver prior to the formal adoption of the ordinance. So that's where we are. We haven't adopted the ordinance, but it is frozen. Nobody can file an application for a waiver on what we call Western New River, which is from Mola Avenue to the city limits.
Can I ask a question on that?
Depends on who you want to ask.
What if someone already had a waiver in place and they wanted to replace it with within the same footprint that currently exists? Would that require?
I'm not going to answer that at this time.
Okay.
Okay.
The answer is frozen.
Frozen?
Moving on. So again, thank you for just phenomenal efforts and more patting on the back in a few minutes. I want to get to we have one dock permit And Jay, thank you for your patience and as well to our speaker at Barnacle, Doctor. Hang in for us, please. So Jay Richardson is representing the applicant, I believe,
Yes.
on this. Give me a second. Come to the table, please. We have plenty of room here. Let me take a second to introduce Jay and I'll explain. John and Stacy Swadner are requesting a dock permit to replace a dock removed at the time of the Cordova. Thank you very much. Pleasure meeting you. That was removed at the time of the Cordova seawall project start, and I want to address that in a second.
Yeah.
They'd like to now get a permit to replace a dock, which was required to be removed during the seawall project, et cetera. And I'm going to let Jay take that, but before you do, there's a number of folks on this board that are newer and may not be aware of the overall Cordova Road project. I'm saying this for your benefit. I asked Andrew to forward me the correspondence on what the Cordova Road project was and what the rights of the landowners was after the wall was done, et cetera. If anybody is unfamiliar with it, I'll share it. There were some significant restrictions and we have granted many waivers and permits, et cetera. This is one that's a little more complicated and I'll let Jay explain it. Thank you.
Look, my name is Jay Richardson. Actually, I lived on Cordova and I've done a couple of docks there. And I'm also a lifelong resident of Fort Lauderdale, Wilton Manors. Long history here, known Mr. Dunkel forever. But this is a dock that's the last dock actually on the south portion of Cordova. It's right at the corner. If you'll notice, or if you look at the survey, the seawall actually curves to the east on this. It goes in probably 10 feet or so. I can't remember the exact amount. So that's why this dock is a little more unusual because it has some curvature to it. If you'll also notice, the setbacks are a little more than you usually see on a 50-foot dock. That's just 5 feet. Because of that, it's 12.5 feet on the south side and 6 feet is what we've put on the north side. So it all fits within the envelope. We've worked with Andrew extensively, going back and forth with revisions as well as Mr. Dunkel. The owner, there's a brand new house that was built on the Yacht Club Street 12th there. That was built by Gulf Builders. And during this process, we also had multiple discussions with John Shear so that he would talk to the owner so that we agreed on where we could put the pier dock out that wouldn't necessarily interfere with the dock that they've put in that you would see on the overhead. So we think we're at a good spot that everybody's agreed upon and are not in violation of any riparian rights. If you look directly from this house east, it actually goes directly down the canal. So there is no width issue here, so to speak. But we believe this is a good way to deal with this dock on this piece of property. And I'm available now. While it is true that there was a dock when my client bought this residence, after doing some investigation and talking to Bob, actually there was no license in place when they transferred the house. Things weren't processed like they are now. There was no license renewed. So it currently, even though there was a dock there that they were using when it was ripped out, they didn't have a license for it. So we amended the application so it is for a new dock, but in fact, there was a dock there.
So thank you for not pleading grandfathered. So that's always nice to hear. When I say it's a little more complicated, guys, if you look at it, we've approved many on Cordova Road. It's because of the corner location. I say it's a little more complicated. But Andrew has vetted this, Bob has vetted this. We've discussed it at length. I think that Jay and the applicant are cognizant of the fact that you can't penetrate that wall. If you notice, the ramp goes up and over, it's not bolted in. So in every respect, it seems to comply with the restrictions that are in place. I'm going to open up to the floor if anybody has questions. Yeah, Jimmy.
I'm very familiar. We drive, I'm not just off Cordova to
Sure.
Harbors. Where are they going to put the boat? Are they going to put it going out this way?
They probably will put it. They don't have a boat. They're more of canoe, paddle boards and that kind of thing. So there's no boat that's currently there.
So going out straight
But they
out,
would have the ability to go out 23 feet to the end of that dock, which is 25 feet out, or they could go I think it's 27
right,
across.
or,
Or quite frankly, they could tie it up diagonal. That'd still be within the right. I mean, it would be, they realize they have to be within the envelope. They're not gonna back the 60-foot Viking into there.
24 foot.
Yes,
Yeah.
which is done by some people around the city.
Now, they've done a nice job on that road now. Almost finished, but we got some things in Lauderdale Harbors that needs to be done.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, it's been quite the project. And quite frankly, I think it is working other than some areas relative to the water. I lived on Cordova the whole time they were putting the wall
Oh,
in.
yeah,
It was
those valves
Interesting
helped
venture.
also.
the valves help, but they're quite frankly, the amount of debris, I mean, the marine life that grows on them literally within weeks.
Yeah.
Causes significant.
That's a
issue.
whole,
That's
that's
a
a
whole
whole
nother
other
story.
potential, one of your friends on this board and we will not.
Yeah.
Not up for it,
Yeah, that there are none
That's a big
here
issue
on this
for us.
piece of property. No.
Mr. Harris.
Yeah, so the dock goes out 23 feet. You know, I looked at it.
Technically, the dock goes out 25, but
Yeah.
the dock
The
that goes
pier.
north-south goes 2 feet out into to the canal, and then the pier goes out 23, so that's a total
Yeah.
of 25.
You know, and looking at it, I had to go on Google Earth and put little lines and figure out, because, I mean, potentially, yeah, it could block in the neighbor, you know, to the right.
So
So,
don't forget the seawall curves out probably 10 feet, so their riparian rights wouldn't even start until the end of that. I mean, it would for visual effects,
yeah,
but I mean, it's an interesting area of the law, as Bob will tell you.
yeah, there's only one other, you know, north of there where it's, you know, going perpendicular, you know, out in the middle of the triangle area between Ninth and.
Ted Bones,
Yeah, Ted's property.
but it's a third, it's more than a third, it doesn't,
Yeah,
if it meets the 30% and it stays within the 25 feet, he's got nobody. The
Yeah,
riparian
right.
rights can't.
so, but the one thing, it's the enforcement of this, because potentially could you put a 70-foot sailboat, you know, behind
No.
there with not a big beam?
Well,
Because you're actually legal as far as the length of it, because you have the full length of the canal in front of you. So it's, I mean,
I'll
do
leave
you
that.
have a letter
don't-
from the property owner to the south? Yeah,
No, I
adjacent one
didn't.
or-
1501.
I got one. You mean from John Shear? I know, I think Bob
Yeah.
spoke to him, right? But I mean, I could get one.
One of the first iterations is that you were
Yeah.
playing around with, I could see a potential
Yeah.
riparian conflict between the two riparian rights. By moving that finger pier farther to the north, I think that's pretty well eliminated, and that's what John has indicated. But you raise an interesting point. Yes, theoretically, you could take a 60-foot vessel. I don't know what the width of the waterway is at that point. Oh, that's right,
It
you're all the way
goes
down.
all the way out, so.
And that's why I like this idea of going forward with the notion that the vessel cannot go out any further than the farthest mooring pile. That makes for ease of enforcement.
Yeah, that was kind of where I was going as far as the enforcement of how not to have
Well,
they sell the property, the other guys sell the property, and then it's like
so
someone puts a bigger
yeah,
boat
but
out.
the code is what the code is relative to vessels parked, and like with Ted, or there's another, I think, Rick Burgess just put out one that goes out. You know, you can't mess with the navigable water, but if you have 100 feet there, that's something that the commission really needs to get a hold of, in my humble opinion.
And I think this may not be the proper case to discuss that, but
Yeah.
they're allowed to have that finger pier out 25 feet.
Yeah.
And it's, unless they're going for a waiver, we don't usually attach, conditions to it, but
Yeah.
it's something that needs to be thought about
Yeah,
for enforcement purposes.
Right.
Yes.
And we thought about, Bob and I have discussed this, we considered piling there just in case somebody were to put it, and just to make it easier to dock. But with the piling there in this particular one, because of where the other house sits, that would be the potential interference with that even though I think even at 25 feet out, it doesn't really get into his, where he legally could have a boat. It would still be a navigational issue that would make his life difficult that we choose not to do.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I can see how it works, you know, I mean, it fits the boats are both coming in the same direction, parking the same direction. and we're
It
docking
makes
the
it
same
a
direction.
lot easier, quite frankly, than towing them in. That's the house that, as you recall, used to have that odd looking old naval vessel there.
Yes.
Yeah.
What's the barge doing there?
She was a nice lady.
What's the barge doing there?
Yeah,
There's a barge right there.
Well, that's
No,
another.
that was when they were putting in the next door neighbor's pier.
No. But I think what he was looking at, and the same thing that you're talking about as far as the vessel going out that way, also at 1601, 1501, they have the same deal where they can go on, and if you actually took where the channel would be and rounded that off on that corner, both of those could go out quite a distance and stuff on it.
One just to the north, they already have their dock in, they don't have a pier. We actually spoke to them to be neighborly, to say, hey, do you want to just put one pier in there? And I talked to Bob about it, just to try to mitigate having multiple items out, because then that does, you know, at a 50-foot dock, as you go down, if everybody's got a flat dock and they put pilings out, it's challenging to navigate in and out, whereas in a pier it can be. But either way, we believe this, and we've spoken to both of the neighbors, and they did not have an issue with it, and I'm happy to.
Do you memorialize that it's okay to do in some type of agreement with those neighbors?
No, because it's not, I mean, it's not like an issue where anybody's pointed out that we're in violation anywhere. It was more of being neighborly to say, hey, we're gonna tell you what we're doing. We know what dock you put in, and you know, and then we spoke to John. I spoke to John Shear, who's the builder, who was talking to the owner, because that owner actually also owns the
Very
house.
knowledgeable on navigational
Yeah, very.
issues. He's got a 64-foot Viking over there
Yes.
on the yacht club. My son happens to be.
And
the
he
captain.
puts in a lot of
John
docks.
is well versed in this area.
Yeah. So we made sure that there wasn't gonna be an issue. I think an agreement would be appropriate if one or the other of us thought there was gonna be a violation if we were doing it, but there is.
I'm just thinking down the road when they change the house, they sell the house, somebody else comes in and hey, that's
You
challenging.
know, the law is what the law is, and
This
you know.
complies with the law.
this complies with the law. Now, if so, like, as we pointed out, if somebody is bold enough to back in their 60-foot Viking and clog everything up, I feel certain that our code violation friend will get a call, and then the city can figure out how they do it. I mean, the city, Bob will tell you, this is different. The city docks, or this is a lease of city property. It's different than private dock that's sitting out there in the backyard. The guy on the right is just a private dock that's limited by the fact that it's that he, quite frankly, butts up to city property. So he may not even have the same rights. I don't even know. I didn't look into that. But because it curves around, his riparian rights start at the end of the city dock, which is actually almost 10 feet, I think, into his property.
It's just that the, you know, the code is the code, but he could literally put a 50-foot boat at that dock, I mean, a 25-foot dock, and could extend 25 feet beyond.
You mean my?
Yeah, your guy, you know, could put a much longer boat in there and be within code, you know, of doing
Well,
that. And we-
the code, but it's the code, but in this particular case, there's a license that the city grants that says what the rights are, you know, it's there. So if it is an issue
As to the length of the dock.
as to the length of the dock, but I mean, if it is an issue,
The city is not in the business of adjudicating riparian rights.
correct.
That's left to a circuit court judge or between the two parties resolving it between themselves.
I'm just saying the length of the boat that you got.
No, I understand your
That-
point.
That's the
Yeah.
riparian rights portion of it.
Yeah.
So you're interfering with, because the code says 30%, and it's always a problem, as you see, I shouldn't say it's always a problem. It's always an issue, because people look at like what Ted did, which looks fine, they get all upset. How does this guy put this big boat lift and the thing goes out that far? Well, guess what? It's
But the
500 feet
location
across.
it's appropriate, for that. This one is just a tricky one in that.
Yeah.
Rather than being able to have a 50-foot, or a smaller boat parked, parallel with the seawall, it's putting it perpendicular to the seawall, which potentially blocks the other guy, because he
Oh, but
couldn't do the same thing.
It's circumstances.
Yes.
No,
Oh, no, he could put a
would've-
pier in
would've
and try
had-
and block the other, so
he
you'd
would-
have
he would've-
two piers.
He would have had a more difficult one, because he would have had to do it on the north side. Of that piece of property, because right at the corner, I mean, if you look at the
On
survey,
right, I mean, if it-
yeah, on the west side, if you look at the survey here, see it curves all the way around. His property line is here, that's where,
Mhm.
and it curves around here. This dot comes and stops right about here. So you have literally, it doesn't say on the survey, but I think that's about 10 feet. So 10 feet of the 25 is,
What I mean is that if he put a pier out here,
he couldn't put a pier out there. He still has to meet his setbacks.
5 feet up and then put a pier out.
The finger pier.
A finger pier. Yeah.
Well, they have.
That's, yeah, no, I realize that.
And obviously, we would say that invades our riparian rights
Mhm.
to do that. So he has it and it's not there and the.
So,
owner
but
agreed to it.
does. So the riparian rights for him only, they stop at 25 feet, I guess.
No, the riparian rights are it's a whole
Yeah,
very
yeah, yeah.
complicated situation. Riparian rights can be, quite frankly, visual in some areas. So you can't, you can't necessarily say that, but you have to be able to, you have navigation rights. And that's why Bob is
Yeah.
smart enough to where he says, tell me where, how you navigate and all that. And if we did what we could really do and what would be in our benefit would be to put some dolphin piles there, that could potentially screw up his navigation, but it's not.
I have a question for you, Bob. City docks stuff, such as Cordova and stuff is, if I'm not mistaken, like once every 5 years or something, they almost have to reapply it. You as the representative and stuff in the city, if there's disputes on city docks and city properties like that, are you more or less like the jury on that, so you can,
If you're talking, if there's a potential conflict between the
Right.
riparian rights. What I do is I try to jawbone the parties into coming to an agreement, because as I said. Only a circuit court judge can determine what the riparian rights are. Parties can get together and determine and enter into what is it's similar to a boundary agreement. I, in the city, lack the authority to adjudicate anything regarding riparian rights. So we tried the jawboning, which worked in this case.
a few years ago, I think you changed the ordinance, the ordinance that it used to be that if the homeowner directly in front of where the dock was gonna be built, if that homeowner decided that they didn't want a dock or anything else, then the homeowners on either side or whatever could actually put in a request for that dock. That's no longer, as far as I'm concerned, that's no longer in existence. Now, the homeowner is the only one that can have the dock directly adjacent. to the
Right.
property.
The upland homeowner.
Yeah.
And,
yes.
and when that upland homeowner sells, they have to remove the dock within 3 months or get the successor to apply for the
Okay.
permit.
But with that in mind, then, and you have that, so if, like, we've seen a lot of docks that we're gonna be putting in there. If they put the dock in there and you have a violation or something over there on the dock, like what we've been talking about, putting something out that you didn't get a variance and stuff for, it's out over there. The city intercede and say to basically the code Marco that was in here, or you, the city, that you are in violation of what?
Yeah, there's 2 options there. Number one, you can go to code enforcement board. One of the problems with code enforcement board is now you get a lien against a homestead property. That doesn't get you anywhere. The other thing is we've baked into the resolution that a violation of the code can cause a revocation of the permit for the dock.
All right, that's what I was interested in. Okay. Makes sense.
That's key.
So in this case, could the boat only be 25 feet? Could it not extend past that finger pier, or could it extend past the finger pier?
Oh, there's nothing that prevents it from being longer than 25 feet. actually, in this case, would be 23 feet. To get out,
Right.
okay. You've got several options. One, you can recommend to the commission approval. Two, you can recommend denial. Three, you could recommend with a contingency that a vessel of X number of feet not be permitted. That's in your discretion. It's never been done before on Cordova.
And, but in my opinion, also, it's really it deals with navigability. You couldn't put a vessel there that interferes with the navigation of the canal. Because, right, I mean,
Quite
that's,
frankly,
so,
I'd be more inclined to take that 30% rule, go a little bit farther north. What is the width of the canal there? And that's the point beyond which they couldn't go.
yeah. I mean,
That's
they're-
what we've done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what we've done historically. We've looked at the width of the canal to the north or to the south.
Yes, it's just that I think that there should be a limiting back, either an agreement with the adjacent neighbor. To the east of him, that potentially could be blocked, by him. Something to document that they gave approval, that they're like.
But that doesn't block him. I mean, we don't have any issue with the neighbor at 501. His issue was, how do I get into my dock? He can't put out a pier more than 25 feet and he's got to be with his setback. So that's not, there's no interference with that. And I mean, unless you had a boat that had a beam, if you had one of those big catamarans that had a 30-foot beam, maybe, but it still would have to be within the 25 feet. Because if you start, because basically what you're saying is, oh, we're going to force everybody to stay within the boundaries of the dock space, and then you have to have your boat within the boundaries of the dock space.
Well, it's a unique
But that-
situation,
that's-
this corner, where they are, is the thing. And it's,
There's multiple ones. I mean, there's the one right next to me or used to be next to me at 1009 that's for sale right now. That dock looks right down the canal as well. I mean, there's probably 6 houses there. There's actually multiple if you count the Burgess, all those ones that are on.
Yeah,
the
I
bigger
don't
area.
disagree that it's a good layout. I think it's a good layout, for what they're doing.
Yeah.
I think it's the best layout. It's just that the potential for a big boat to go there at some point and having a conflict with that neighbor, a different neighbor that's now moved in there. That's my only concern, with it, which is why having either something documented that they've agreed to it, or that they're okay with it, or that there's some limiting factor for how long.
They don't, the city owns the property. The city commission has put in force an ordinance and a resolution that they said, this is what happens to lease dock space on Cordova. And here's the rules. And it says you got to fit within these requirements on your dock. And it says you have to abide by these code violations. So, I mean, these code provisions. So now you're saying you want to alter the code provision that we have to comply with, make this house separate from everything else.
He's not really asking to alter those. He's asking for what I would consider a riparian rights agreement between two adjacent property owners. However, if I'm on the other side of this issue, and you're asking him to limit the length of his boat, part of the negotiation process is, well, we're going to have to limit the length of your vessel, and it's going to become very squirrely.
Well, it'd be more the width of this vessel, because he's not.
Yeah, but he could,
Well, he
but
could put a
it's
pier.
stopping them from putting a pier out later.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's what John and I went around the horn on this and we spoke extensively about it. And this, the way we
Which is why
have it.
just having some documentation of it with the approval of doing this, that there's an agreement between the adjacent property owners.
Not necessarily
But
binding.
the city has no,
Unless you do a riparian rights agreement and have it reported to the public.
Yeah,
records.
but
I've
one-
done that.
yeah, but they have no incentive to do that. They're gonna say, why am I, that's like asking your neighbor to, hey, I want to put my garbage cans on your property.
But I mean, I would defer to your opinion, of this as far as on.
Well, I don't want to rob the board of its discretion, and you
Yeah.
can put a length on there. You could require a riparian rights agreement, which is gonna take quite a while.
Yeah, I don't want to.
But I don't want to tell the board what to do. I just want to outline what your area of discretion is.
Yeah, I think he answers kind of the question where the city and stuff over there has like a final say, even if they're in any kind of violation and stuff over there, not so much as like a private dock. The city has more of a say in it than a private dock would. You have two private people. The city can almost, I hate to use the word, but threaten in 5 years and stuff, we're not giving you another permit for your property unless you comply because you're out too far or whatever it is. So they have a lot of restrictions and stuff on there, which being the city property, which I think Bob answered, that they can intercede. That normally on a private property, they would have maybe a problem with doing it. So,
You're very good.
Mine.
Very good.
Yeah, I've heard enough where I mean, I'd be in favor of approving the dock.
So, so Jimmy's already taken care of everything, so but look, you know what, the issue is, every single waiver permit we do, the potential exists that the next person sells a house.
Right.
You know, and as Norbert said, they swear up and down they're not gonna do it, and 5 minutes after they walk out of here, they put a bigger boat. Correct, and so I'm saying we have to look at the situation, this is a permit. Understand who's the applicant and the motivation behind this. So thank you, Jimmy. I think we vetted this and Jay, excellent
Thank you.
presentation.
I understand your comments and I agree. I see difficulties in trying to put it together.
I see.
Actually, it would have to be an agreement between the city.
City.
Yes,
We don't-
almost a tri-party agreement.
Right,
Yeah.
and that may affect the resolution
Yeah.
for the lease.
Yeah.
Then you'd have to tie it to the lease and.
I'd like to make a motion to approve.
We have a motion,
I second it.
second from Ed.
Second.
How about a roll call vote, please, Carl?
Yes.
Okay.
Poor girl has to thank all the.
I give.
Wrong hand.
Mr. Harrison,
Yes.
Mr. Flanagan, oh, he's absent. Mr. McLaughlin,
Your turn.
Yes.
Ms. Norvell,
Yes.
Mr. Franks,
Yes.
Mr. Knott,
Yes.
Ms. George,
Yes.
Mr. Washington,
Yes.
Mr. Repold,
Yes.
and Chair Whitten.
Yes, excellent presentation, excellent conversation, guys.
Thank you all for your work.
Yeah, thank you.
You guys are doing a great job and I'm glad that you're working on the new river. 'Cause that is the-
Yeah.
Thank you.
How they dig that out.
Jay, thank you.
So on to a little fun here and some entertainment for us. If we're not, Rutger, if you haven't fallen asleep over there yet. And we've got IT. So let me introduce Rutger Langley. Rutger Langley is from a company called Barnacle Doctor. I originally met Rutger because I needed kind of a quick bottom cleaning of my boat. And that turned out to be a very small part of their business. We all understand the need to raise seawalls, maintain our seawalls, etc. I don't know if this is a franchise, but what I'd like you to do is give a little bio on you and your brother and the company. And if you would explain how this all works, because I think what I've gathered from this is this will allow us to dramatically extend the lives of our seawalls, docks, boat lifts, etc. So you got the floor.
Yes, sir. First of all, thank you, Mr. Whitten, for having me out here. This is super cool. I've gone and spoken in front of some homeowners association meetings, so I'm used to the environment. Thank you all for listening to me. My name is Rutger Langley. I'm 25 years old. I moved over here 5 years ago from the west coast of Florida. I was born and raised on an island over there called Anna Maria Island. You may have heard of it. It's a wonderful place to grow up. I was a commercial fisherman since I was 14. When I turned 16, I got my saltwater products license and my restricted species license, and I started commercial fishing legally. Before that, I was doing it illegally. When I turned 18, I got my captain's license, my 6-pack, and I started becoming a charter captain. I found out very quickly that was not where I wanted to be. So I came to the East Coast of Florida to go to school at Florida Atlantic. I graduated there 2 years ago. I'm currently getting my master's from Florida Atlantic. My whole life has been revolving around the water. I haven't had a job that doesn't involve the water ever. So when I came over here, I started a whole cleaning company called Barnacle Doctor 4.5 years ago. And I had experience doing my dad's sport fish in the back. I was always the one every month to go back there and do it. So when I heard that it was as big of an industry down here as it is, I knew I had to get in on it. So we started 4.5 years ago, and we're up to just under 200 monthly and bi-weekly boats. But as Mr. Witten was saying, that is a very small percentage of what we do. We do underwater maintenance and cleaning on all underwater structures. And to start off with that, oh, I lost you. Start off, I want to start with wooden pilings. I'm gonna go through a little bit of everything. My PowerPoint slide does not have all the information. All the information's in my head, but I threw down some quick facts and some visual aids up there for you guys to look at. First thing I want to talk about is wrapping your pilings and the benefits of doing so. This photo that you see up there was a study that was done by a Florida college, and it was right here actually in West Palm Beach. They did a 2-year study on the damage that wooden pilings can go through without having the glass fiber reinforced polymer plastic on the outside. Right there, the test results. That's after 2 years in West Palm Beach, right here in our backyard. Here's another photo where they were showing how even though the damage may not be visible from the outside, it's visible from the inside. It looks like that. It looks from this picture that they did that with drills, but that's actually something called a shipworm. And what shipworms are they're a decomposer in the sea, and they're basically like underwater termite. They travel in colonies. So each piling, if you have them there, has its own colony. And what a colony needs to begin in a piling is oxygen and sunlight. So the idea is that when you wrap a piling, you take away the sunlight and the oxygen, and they don't breed anymore. A lot of the times, companies that I've noticed down here in South Florida, they will wrap them in the GFRP plastic, and that'll be good. That is not a solution. That will prevent future colonies from forming in the piling, but it won't kill the colony that's already in the piling. So basically, you put the sleeve over, it looks really nice, but they're still doing all the work on the inside, and you'll end up with an hourglass shape of your piling, which I'm sure you guys have all seen. So what we do, and what many other companies that do it right do, is first we wrap the entire piling with a cellophane plastic wrap, and that cuts all the oxygen off to the shipworms that are already in the piling. Then we come over with the plastic and wrap on top of that, taking away the sunlight. This kills the shipworms that are already in the piling and prevents more from coming in the future.
You go down to the bottom?
We go below the bottom. So a lot of times they'll jip you out, and all people are getting in the water. They'll go 6 inches above, 8 inches above, a foot above. We dig it out. We go 6 inches below at least. Like I was saying, you need sunlight. So a lot of the times the shipworms will really only be towards the water line where they can see. If you go to the bottom of piling, they're generally perfect, and under the mud, perfect as well. So they can be a huge factor. I've seen new properties that have pilings put in, and for some reason the company doesn't wrap them, which I haven't been able to confirm, but I have a theory that piling installation companies, people who build docks, they don't want to wrap them because they're taking away their future business. And and they're taking away their kids' business, and their kids not gonna be able to place that dock down the road. So what I believe is that they don't really push piling wraps on clients because they want to come back out and replace the pilings. I've seen myself, I've only been doing this for 4.5 years. I'm only 25, so I haven't even seen a piling's full life. But just in the time that I've been doing it, I would put my number somewhere just under double the life if you keep it always wrapped and always protected. The problem is people will wrap them and say, okay, I wrapped them. It's been about 5 years. They're probably good. No way. You need to have them at least inspected, get in the water yourself every 2 to 5 years, just to make sure, because as soon as that plastic wrap starts coming up or gets loose, water can get in there, sunlight can get in, and they'll form a new colony. And once the colony's formed, you have to do the same process of cutting off all the oxygen to get them out. So that can be a huge problem. Can lead to your dock collapsing, all those problems as well. Moving on to your batter pilings. I'm sure you guys all know these are the pilings that support your seawall from the outside. Generally, from what I've noticed, batter pilings started when they started putting in king seawalls. So your older properties before 1980-ish will have the poured seawall and not have the batter pilings. So generally right now, most batter pilings are in great shape. It'd have to be one of like the older properties that we go to when they just started doing them, where you see really any damage to them. But it's also something that's super good to get in the water, inspect it, make sure there's no cracks. There is rebar set in all of them. So if you have any exposed rebar, that'd be your first sign of, I need to get these inspected and get them recast. And basically what we do is we set a sleeve on the, has everyone here heard of snap jackets for wood pilings? They're a concrete sleeve that goes around the piling. You've probably seen them. We do the same sort of setup for batter pilings. We have a frame that goes around them and we re-pour the structure so you get the integrity back. But I imagine that none of you guys have that problem. It's really only on old properties when they first started doing king walls. But to go straight into king walls, and most of what we do revolves around seawalls. So if you have a seawall, you generally have either a composite wall, a concrete wall, or if you have a very old property, you have a poured seawall with rock. I would say from what I've seen, about 70% of people have the king wall. And if you look at the bottom left photo, you can see that is where they have taken off a king wall piling and have exposed the seam in between the two joints on the seawall. So as you know, when they set your seawall in, it's in 8 to 10 foot sections and they slide it down in the mud, and they slide another one in next to it. And then they put a piling up against the face in front of it. They put a thin mesh cloth on the back end of the seawall to prevent sediment from coming out. And then they put this seal that you see there in the crack and then put the piling on. That is a great way to keep sediment out for a few years. But as it gets down the line, what they've had to do is, if you look at the bottom right photo, in that crevice there is usually filled with cement. You've probably seen on your own. They're all cemented up at the wall. We call this resealing your seawall. So every homeowners that understand it, every 2 years. Homeowners that need to see that it's going bad every 2 to 5 years. But generally above 5 years, you need to have your seawall resealed. And what we do is we come in and we break out all the old cement that was keeping it in there and keeping all your sediment in, and we replace it. Same thing, we dig up 6 inches below at least 6 inches below the mud line to make sure that the seal goes all the way down. But generally speaking, when we get called out to do this, we get called out because people have a low spot in their yard. So my checklist of what I tell people to do is begin with resealing your seawall. It's the cheapest, quickest, and most probably what's wrong with your seawall. Have it resealed. If that doesn't work, you need to have the foam injection on the backside. I'm sure you guys have had that done if you've been around here for a while. That is sometimes the fix. Now, the problem I get with a lot of people is I'll come and seal the wall. It won't fix it. They'll do the foam installation. It won't fix it. Now they're out $5,000 just because they needed a new footer on their seawall. So a lot of the times, the best thing you can do for your property is have someone come out and inspect your seawall, let you know what you need so you're not chasing your own tail, and then you can go from there for what your fix of your leak is. But like I say, for everyone, is to start with resealing it. That's always a problem. They're out every 2 to 5 years, and start there.
The seawall underwater, how do you seal it?
Pardon?
If the seawall is underwater, how do you get in there and apply a seal?
So we use hydraulic cement, which it works
Okay.
underwater. So we do mix it on the dock and bring it in the water in small quantities. So it's pretty strenuous task, but it works underwater. A lot of pardon?
You put a coat over it.
Yes. Well, no, we actually bust out. So you can't see it, but if you look in that bottom right-hand picture, there should be that whole gap there should be filled with cement.
Oh.
That whole gap right there on the right in between the seawall and that piling right there should be filled with cement. That's an extremely large gap that I brought just to show you guys. Usually the gap is between half an inch and maybe an inch if it's unset. They set them right on there, but as time goes, they slowly spread apart. And as that gap gets bigger, it's that water takes a right turn and a left turn and is right there in all your dirt. So those cement is the first barrier behind that, and the cheapest way to do it as well. Another thing I wanted to talk to you guys about is weed holes. I've just in the past several months, we've been installing these weed hole drains, and you see in the top right, it's a filter cone. A lot of the property owners have said nothing but great things about them. They're very easy to install. Basically what it allows you to do compared to your normal weed pull is to get in the water yourself as the property owner and pull those little drains out. And basically it's a mesh filter and you can wash them out in the water and put them back in. It prevents you from having to clean them out of barnacles and stuff get in there. They say the regular maintenance and the regular removing of it will prevent that, as well as they claim it slows down sediment loss from your property. I think they're amazing. They're very easy to install. You can install them with Tapcons into the seawall and stainless steel screws. Nothing but great things. So it's definitely something you guys should look into if you have a property on the water.
Do you core drill that?
Pardon?
You core drill that weed pole?
I'm sorry.
Core drill the weed pole?
Yes, we drill it out with a hydraulic, one of those Hilti underwater, really badass drill. And we put a Tapcon in and stainless steel screw. The first one I did was probably about 6 months ago, and we've done 15 to 20 since then. We've really been taking over. I'm sure you guys have heard of them, but I thought when I was looking through, that would be something to show you guys.
Does that become environmental?
Pardon?
The cutting through the concrete, does that become environmental, the concrete going into the water?
You know, I couldn't imagine so, because they're doing the same system that they're doing. They're pouring the concrete there in the first place. It's just, you know, it's a very minute, small hole. It's probably 1/4 inch wide and 3/4 of an inch deep. So I've never really thought about the problem of pollution.
It is a problem, man.
That would be a problem.
Yes.
I wouldn't have thought of it being a problem, honestly. And I guess we should be catching the dust as it falls. That's good to know. Thank you.
You're talking to a guy who knows over there, 2 guys from Milwaukee.
No, thank you for that information. All right, and yes, so I wanted to confirm that we don't build seawalls. I couldn't tell you anything about the cap of a seawall. I know everything about the face. I couldn't tell you anything about a cap. I know they just put a new ordinance in, right, to raise all the seawalls 2 feet. Is that what it is? Roughly 2 feet. So I know nothing about that, and I want to make sure you guys know if my expertise stays in the water. But thank you so much for that information. I had no clue, and I don't want to ever be caught on the wrong side of that. So that's
the wrong side of that.
That is definitely.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for letting me know that.
Go ahead.
Sorry, this button's talking. So while we come and do all these things, I wanted to explain to you guys about the process that we use cleaning. And the reason why is because it's brand new, just like the weed pulls. It started about 4 years ago. It's called a cavitation cleaning system, if anyone has heard about it. It was developed by a doctor who used this technology, this process to separate white and red blood cells. And they found out that if they used that process in the gun, that they could spin water at high speeds to create micro bubbles in the water, the same thing that happens behind your boat prop when it cavitates. So what our machines do is, and you can see in the top left, that's coming off of a sailboat keel. And what they do is, instead of using a pressure washer, which has always been the way of doing it, that usually works around 4,000 PSI, shoots out a jet of water. These machines work at only 1,500 PSI. And they were designed for the Navy. The Navy actually had a patent on them from the guy for a year to put on all their ships to do all the cleaning. There were a bunch of Navy studies done. I have the documentation too, and it's really cool stuff to read over if you ever have some free time. But basically what the benefit of the machines are is that with very low pressure, low enough pressure that you won't do any damage to bottom paint, gel coat, fiberglass, like you would a pressure washer. If you took a pressure washer underwater and went down your boat, you take all the bottom paint off immediately. So these machines don't have the power to take the bottom paint off. But what's so cool is when that water is spinning at 7,000 RPMs inside of the gun tip. Now this gun, as you can see there, it's got that long metal barrel and it spins the water in there as fast as it can. So when it comes out, it looks like that stream of just these little tiny air bubbles. When you hold the gun at a 30-degree angle to the surface that you're cleaning, those bubbles can slide down it like a sand blaster, basically, and remove the growth without using all the pressure that's normally needed. It's really cool stuff. And the reason it's blown up so much down here is for hole cleaning. It was made for hole cleaning, and it's blown up for hole cleaning because prop speed. If you have prop speed on your props and your running gear, this is 100% safe. When we clean boats, one of my first questions when someone calls me with a large boat is it prop speeded, and how do you want us to handle that? Because a lot of the times hole cleaners will get a new boat, and if they're inexperienced in it, they'll take a hand scraper or Brillo pad down there and they'll take all your prop speed off. And that's a multi-$1,000 thing to have done on your boat. So these machines are 100% safe on prop speed, which is a big plus for all of the large yachting community, as well as safe on bottom paint, which makes it very simple to clean extra dirty boats. You know, when that growth has gotten so much that it's going through the bottom paint and into the hole, these machines have been especially well. On top of that, not really for as much as you guys would care, but on the user side of it, if you're ever interested in purchasing one of these machines, the company that makes them is called Cavadyne. It's a really cool company out of the west coast of Florida. It's Cavadyne. And like I said, they started 4 years ago. I was the first person in South Florida to have one of the machines. I'm pretty sure last time I spoke to them, now there's 4 people down here with them in the past 4 years. But such a cool system, great company to work with. If I had a 140, 130 plus size boat, I would keep one of these on it at all times so I could clean around the world whenever I need it. Super cool stuff. And I can't get into all the science, but if you're interested, on the website is all the science behind the machines and how they work. And for the price that they are, it should be a lot of science behind it. So
Okay, so you can work in water and out of water with it either way?
no, that's actually the one of the catches is it only works underwater.
Underwater.
So
Okay.
the science, whatever science is behind of it, it only works underwater. If you were to use it above water, it would clean nothing compared to how a pressure washer would do. Even like I went alligator hunting last week or 2 weekends ago. We killed an alligator, and you're supposed to use a pressure washer to take the skin off of the head after you had boiled it. The cavitation machine wasn't even enough to do that. And we bought one of those little Ryobi, power washers, and that was enough. Underwater, it'll remove an oyster off of a 10-year-old oyster off of a pilot. So it's really crazy how much, once you get it underwater and it can work like how the cavitation machine is meant to work, then it can do those things.
So what do you have hooked up from the ground to this piece of equipment?
So you have it feeds at 7 gallons per minute. So it uses a lot of water. A normal pressure washer is between 2 and 4 gallons per minute. So you need a water source, that'll be the water on the dock running to the machine, and then a high pressure hose coming off of it to the gun. All the magic happens in the gun. None of the magic is on the machine. All the magic's in the gun. It's basically a fine-tuned pressure washer motor tuned towards the gun. You have to send, whenever you do maintenance on the machine, you have to send it in to have it tuned towards the gun because you can blow the gun up with too much pressure. So it's basically a fine-tuned pressure washer for the gun to do the magic there. Yeah, really cool. It's really cool stuff.
So somebody has a seawall that's covered with mussels and oysters, et cetera, and you can clean that wall.
Completely spot free. Like
So
there is
that-
almost no calcium deposits left.
So we would assume if you remove that, that extends the longevity.
No, I would say in my professional opinion, it wouldn't extend the longevity. If you could say it would extend the longevity, the only way you could say that is if by now cleaning it, you can see damage and repair it, which would extend the longevity. A lot of companies will come, and this is for seawall inspectors and repairmen, even licensed inspectors will come and give you a seawall inspection and not take one piece of growth off of it. And I've never understood how you can give an accurate seawall inspection with half of the seawall completely covered in growth. So a lot of the times what we do, and one of our most popular things, is to come out and do cleanings on seawalls so then they can be properly inspected by us and do the repairs that you didn't even know you needed. Because a lot of the times if you have a crack, for example, I mean, this is a very common story, a low spot in the yard, and the seals on the seawall have been done recently, and they have no idea where it's escaping from. We can hop in the water. Let's say you have the dip in the middle of your yard. We'll clean 5 feet this way and 5 feet this way, find the crack, do the repair. If you went there without taking the growth off, you would have never seen the crack. You could have never done the repair. So that's really what we use the cavitation machine for. And in that sense, at what you have floating docks out back. There's a big misconception about you buy a floating dock, put it out back, it's good to go forever. I mean, at least 2 to 5 years, you've got to be cleaning it and making sure that the growth has not gone through your dock. Over time, as much as growth grows out, it grows in, it eats away and bonds with all of the plastic in your dock, and that plastic is very soft. And I've come out multiple times. If we come to clean one of your floating docks and I notice that it's covered in growth, I make you sign a little paper that says if it sinks, it's not on us. Because I've came to clean floating docks and taken the growth off, and it's pinholes all the way down it. The dock sinks and it's worth nothing now. Now, the dock was already like that and probably been like that for several years, but the growth had bonded over those holes and wasn't letting it out. But the entire thing inside and out was covered in barnacles. So if you have one of those docks and it's been sitting out there for a while, make sure you're having it cleaned. At least yourself, you can go down and just get a little scraper and just test out, see how the density of your plastic is. Because I've noticed that even sides versus the bottom of your floating dock, the bottom plastic will actually get soft and malleable over time. And you can even push it if you take like say you take a pick, you push on the side and you won't get in, anything. You go on the bottom and you can almost push through it completely. And it's the same plastic. It's only a 10-year-old dock. So
Why does it happen?
I think it's the reaction that the plastic is having with the growth. I think that the growth is bonding with the plastic and taking away the properties that make it hard, and basically just degrading it, breaking it down, just like it does a wood piling or a seawall or your boat hole. Recently we had we went out and cleaned a boat hole, and I know you guys know a lot about boats, so I'm not here to speak about boats much, but we came out and cleaned a boat hole that the lady said had been sitting in the water for 9 months with bottom paint, hadn't been cleaned, and we cleaned it. And the diver luckily noticed that the boat was taking on water before he left. And we were able to start the bilge pump. The homeowner wasn't home. We were able to start the bilge pump, get the water out. But after we were able to send a diver in the water, there were pinholes in the gel coat through the fiberglass and into the bilge from the boat sitting there that long. And the claim was that she had recent bottom paint, but we hear that a lot. So I don't know when the bottom paint was on there, but in those 9 months from when she said she was using the boat actively to now, that she had developed 10 to 15 pinholes that have gone through the fiberglass and were actively taking on water in the boat. So we pulled the boat up to a boat ramp and got out of the water. But leaving your stuff in the water, no matter if it's fiberglass, gel coat, metal, concrete, it needs to be regularly inspected, whether it's you or a company, to make sure it's keeping up to your standards. No matter what I've really noticed is no matter what it is in the water, whether it's your boat, and I'm sure you guys can all attest to this, if you take proper care of it, you'll get twice as much out of it. Whether that's your boat, everybody thinks of, but not many people think about their docks, their seawalls, their floating docks. You don't think about that. You buy the big investment, it's 200 grand one time, and then you're like, I don't want to talk about it ever again. But you need to talk about it. You need to have the hard conversation of maybe I need to have this resealed. The last thing I wanted to talk about are boat lift zinc anodes. And this may come as surprising to you guys, but we run into so many people who are regularly changing the zincs on their boats, but do not know that your boat lifts need zinc anodes as well. And now you may be like, what does that mean? I definitely don't. And you may not, because if you have the style boat lift on the bottom, do you need these zinc anodes? If you have a 4-post lift with wood pilings, you don't need zinc anodes because there's no aluminum in the water. But if you have these, you need to hang these zincs off of, and that's what they look like in the top right. That's actually a zinc from the person who I pick up zincs in Fort Lauderdale. Zinc Guys, great company if you guys need someone. And they come on a metal cable right there. If you do a good 3 wraps on the metal cable, you should have a bolt on your boat lift where you can put it on the inside of the nut, tighten it down so it's got a good bond there, and you're good for around a year. If you're finding yourself replacing your zincs every year, go with a bigger zinc. Most boat lifts are going with 3 to 5 pounds. If you have a 3 and you replace it in a year, put a 5. If you have a 5 and you replace it in a year, put a 7. Electrolysis varies. Some canals have insane electrolysis. Some canals don't need a zinc at all.
Does that mean some electricity is coming from?
Exactly. For an extreme example, we have a client who we hang 2 of those Zinc Guy 3s off of every 4 months behind his boat. Now he has his regular zincs, and he had a mechanic come in and put bolts inside his engine room that we can attach these zincs on to ground the electronics in the engine room. He thinks that there's a problem in the canal where there's some electricity leaking in, which there definitely is, because the people 6 houses down from him have no problem. So That's a huge problem. A lot of things that other people, or a lot of things people don't know as well is when a zinc needs to be replaced. They think the zinc is good until it disappears. That is so far from true. Once the zinc gets down to about 40%, that's when it needs to be replaced. It stops working. Also, if you notice, a lot of the times, if you have very little electrolysis in your area and the zincs aren't working at the rate they should be, they'll get growth covered on them. If your zinc is covered in barnacles, algae, oysters, it's also not working. So you need, if you have low electrolysis and you go to check your zinc after a year and it's perfectly fine covered in barnacles, you need to make a mental check that you need to clean that zinc. Instead of replacing it often, you need to clean it often so that it can stay working throughout those years. There are people who don't need to hang another zinc on their boat lift for 3-4 years because there's no electrolysis, but they still need to clean them because once they become covered in 6 months, they're done working forever until you clean them. And I have taken minutes of gone, clean it, wash it in fresh water, and go put it on someone else's boat lift because it's perfectly fine. They just didn't know that they need to be cleaned. So that's really my 10-minute spill. Yes, sir. Sorry.
That's a wooden pile right there, right? How would you wrap that pile with that plastic?
That wooden piling right there?
Yes.
So what I would do to wrap that piling is if it had a piling on it before, I wouldn't need to clean it. If it didn't, we would come and clean it with the cavitation machine and get all the growth off of it. And then we would start at the bottom with the cellophane wrap up the piling until the top, sometimes wrap down as well. But generally you can get it good in one as long as you have tight loops, you can get in one. And then we come with a pneumatic nailer, a pneumatic hammer. It runs off the same, we run it off the same tank that we run the drill off of that I was speaking to you about. So we come with the pneumatic hammer and it's usually a 2-man mission because you have to keep the wraps tight and that can sometimes be a pain by yourself. So usually it's one diver with a snorkel keeping the wrap tight while there's another with either a hookah or a tank doing the nailing underwater. Generally do between 1.5 to 2 inches between nails. A lot of people use stainless steel ties. I'm very against that, or zip ties even. Very against that as well. They don't last as long. They're expensive and they're a pain to get off once you need to replace them. So I've always think the best route is nails, stainless steel nails, 3/4 inch or 1/2 inch stainless steel flathead nails. So that's all I've got really. If you guys have any questions, I have everything up here. I sometimes forget things and I definitely didn't put anything in the, I brought a bunch of business cards to give to you guys. I'll go around and pass them out at the table when I stand up. Any other questions?
No, listen, that was a tremendous presentation. And for a 25-year-old guy, you act like you're 50 years old. I mean, really great job.
I don't know if that's a compliment, Steve. That would not be a compliment. Yeah.
I think I'm in fact, I knew he was a millennial because I said, "Look, here's all the information, here's the agenda, so Rutger immediately responds and what's the address? I said, read the letter. I didn't know, but it's, I mean, a really great job. And again, the purpose of this is not just introducing a local business, but this is something we could all benefit from.
Yes.
Jimmy Harrison is FJ Propeller. I saw him writing that down when you're talking about prop speed. I mean, this is really informative stuff. And whether you choose to replace your seawall or not, we're all dealing with the growth. I will second the fact that the cheapest protection is zinc, and zinc guys are tremendous. You do service contracts for folks, or is there any reason to do
Not
that?
generally. I've found that service contracts tend to scare people away just as much as they motivate people to stick with you. So my service contract is that I'll always be a great guy and you'll always be a great guy and we'll have great business together. So that's really just been what my communication with people.
Well, I think this is it's a service that many folks can benefit from. This is going out via TV, et cetera, and we will get the word out. We appreciate you coming. And give us your cards and we'll follow up.
Yeah, I really appreciate you guys for having me. This was so awesome. If you, and of course, Mr. Witten, I'll have contact with you for the future as well. If you guys ever want me to come back out again, there's some new faces. I'll come out in 2 years, 3 years. I'm here for a while. I don't plan on moving anywhere. I love Florida. So I'll be here just as long as you guys will. So let me know if you ever have any questions, concerns.
And update us. Let
Yeah.
us know what you're doing and we'll bring you back.
I would love to. The last thing I'll say is we work from South Miami to Jupiter. So anywhere in between there. Our office is in Boynton Beach. I just got an office space there off Federal. So if you are ever in the area, feel free to stop by or just give us a call. I'm at the phone from 7 in the morning to 10 o'clock at night.
How many people you got?
So it's myself. When I started the business, I had a partner. I bought him out a few months ago. I have 6 employees and 4 vans. One of the employees is my younger brother, who Steve met. He's a great worker. I would consider him my manager. But I've got 6 guys. They're all young guys as well. They're between the ages of 21 and 24. I went to college at FAU. Like I said, I graduated 2 years ago, and I still have a good connection with the friend groups that I had in there to have a constant flow of young, motivated divers to be in the field. And that's what I love. I think a big problem that people have with dive companies is that there's no motivation behind it. You don't show up when you say you're going to, and you're very uncommunicative. I'm trying to do it a little different. It's a little more modernized. So I've had great luck with people loving the company and the switch up from what they normally have. But thank you guys all for having me here.
Thank you.
This is our future, guys.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you guys so much. I'm gonna
Yeah, I know.
run some
Make sure I get it.
So, next, moving along, we have item number 8, which we refer to as discussion on draft moratorium ordinance, which is why Bob Dunkel has been gracious enough to hang around, and thank you, Bob. I had asked folks, over the past month, et cetera, per the request of council, that we all read the draft that Bob had put together. A lot of work has gone into it. It continues to be a work in progress. For the purpose of this discussion, before I give Bob the floor, was to make sure that nobody picked up an issue. Nobody picked up an issue that might have been incorrect, et cetera, as this thing goes forward. So I'm going to open up to Bob and just get Bob, you want to kind of just give us an update on where we are and maybe.
To echo Steve's words, what I really needed the board to do was to go through very carefully the preamble. Because when you get down to the part that the city commission is going to adopt, there's a clause in here, the following whereas clauses are hereby ratified and confirmed as being true and correct. I don't want anything in the preamble to be untrue or incorrect. So my ask of y'all is, did you find anything in there that is inaccurate, untrue, incorrect?
Everything,
preamble.
I read it all and I believe that all of it is true.
Any questions from anybody on that? Any issues? Remember, again, it's a small issue to us, but on something like this, it's critical to Bob, so I appreciate it and taking the time to read.
And thank you very much. The next issue is that we were trying to get it on the P and Z agenda for, you know the date? For November meeting, I think it was this, yeah. And we ran into some snafus with regard to the coordinates on the western end. We started to do a little bit of research. I think that we were originally thinking in terms of Bradford Marine being the westernmost part of it. I found out by looking at the city limits that where you've got and the park.
Okay.
No.
Oh, Riverland.
And Cole, yeah,
Riverland Woods Park.
or and Cole Park.
And Cole.
No.
Secret Woods.
Secret Woods.
Secret Woods.
Yeah.
That just beyond that, the city limits go down so that the eastern part of Bradford Marine is within the city limits, but the western part is Damien. So we ended up having to go back and forth, and we decided, I had a telephone conversation with my son who told me that there was another place farther out west I cannot remember the name of the place, but it's
Diesel or something.
something like that. And he said he's seen vessels as large as 112 feet. So we decided to move the westernmost limit out to, bear with me, 1 second,
Riverland Woods.
Riverland Woods,
Okay.
which is the farthest west of the city before you get to the city limits. So we changed that. With those changes, we didn't make that November agenda, but we will be on the December agenda for planning and zoning board for them to look at it and make sure that it's consistent with the comprehensive plan. I've got no doubt that it is consistent. And then we'll go from there to, as soon as we can get on the city commission agenda for first and second reading. But again, the most important part is that we have this doctrine of zoning in progress in place so that we're actually enforcing an ordinance that has not yet been adopted. So we're good on that. That about covers where we are on the moratorium ordinance. There is an issue that has come up this past week. And I think y'all had approved a dock permit, 2795, is it? Dreyfus was the
1725
Okay.
Southeast 8th Street.
and that's in one of those areas where, like Cordova,
Across
the
the street.
city, yes. They've got their riparian rights to the north. They do not have riparian rights to the south because that's city owned. And the gentleman was going to raise the seawall, but he wasn't planning on doing it in accordance with city specifications. The upshot of that is that we had a three-way conference call, and because that is city property, and because the city is raising the seawalls with the sheet piles, yes, thank you very much. That burden is going to be placed on him if he wants to go forward. At this point, his thing is on hold, and he needs to make a decision as to whether he wants to continue with that in light of the fact that he'd have to meet the city specifications, which are going to be apparently quite a bit more expensive than what he had planned.
Can I add to that?
Yes, you may.
It's a rock wall at that location, and they were looking to cap a rock wall, which is problematic in the long.
And it would, the life expectancy of his process would be significantly less than what the city's process is. And then later on, the city would have to come along and do it. So this is the better solution from the city's perspective, not necessarily from the property owner's perspective as far as the process is concerned. But we thought it was important for y'all to understand that we have reached that threshold with regard to those roadways. And by the way, look at the plat. Like Cordova Road, the roadways in that particular plat are dedicated to the city in fee simple.
Is there a schedule for that replacement, that seawall?
I believe they're talking 2025, July. Yeah, fiscal year 2025.
About when you get a permit anyways.
And this will probably be structured in such a way that he has to get it before the city does theirs. And that's another time frame issue that's going to take.
So, thank you for that, Bob. And before we let you go, as we move forward with the moratorium, what are next steps for us? What could we start anticipating? When could we start discussing, planning? What do you envision?
You can start spitballing ideas on what to do with the dock waiver provisions in what we call Western New River from Mola to the western limits of the city.
And what will the city do? Will the city have outreach meetings? Will the public be
It's going to be largely up to this board.
Yeah.
That's great. So you could start.
Yes.
So I'd suggest, guys, we obviously, because Sunshine Law also had the ability to interact. We know we could do that for Andrew. I'd make a recommendation that we all kind of start thinking how we'd like to look at the New River, whether we look at it as individual zones versus a universal zone. Anything you could possibly imagine is on the table right now. So as we December, we'll put something on the agenda kind of as so to start revealing some thoughts on this.
Yeah, so the marine industry has put together a panel or a board of people to be working, on this project, basically taking Robert's ideas with the zones and everything and starting out with that as a foundation for, where we're built from. We have, we met a couple weeks ago, our first meeting was where the Bath and Mirror survey, idea came up. We have, waterfront realtors, waterfront property owners, marina principals, towboat operators, marine businesses, marine businesses that are dependent on the marinas for their business. We have our fine commissioner on that board, and we have Marine Industry Association on the board. So we are working on putting, on assembling a document or ordinance, recommendation. So any ideas that you have, you could funnel them through Andrew, and he'll funnel them through Patience, or funnel them directly to Coco, that way. And I'll keep you up to speed on, where we're at, what we're doing, as, I'll report back to the board as far as, because of sunshine laws, where the progress is and anybody can ask straight out, can ask Patience as far as any ideas or, where we're at, how's our progress, whatever, that kind of stuff.
And stuff.
It's very much a team effort. So again, I mean, we're all on this because we want to give something back to our community. So again, don't be shy to share thoughts. Everything you send to Andrew does get distributed. It's a great way of kind of cheating the system, and it works very well with us. So just do it. Bob, if you're finished with that, I'm gonna roll right into old business, new business.
Well, I actually have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm familiar with how P and Z works, but I'm just curious as to what our plan for when this does go to P and Z, who would be there, who would to answer any questions that may arise, or is there an expectation of doing any presentation to them, because P and Z representatives may or may not know what end of the boat is,
Which is
goes
about-
forward, yeah, and so I'm just curious as to who would be there. I know that for sunshine reasons, we all cannot be there,
That plan
but,
exists between these 2 years,
okay,
okay? And it will involve Steve making a presentation with visuals so that they start to understand the complexities of the twists and turns in New River and so on and so forth. Andrew will be there and I will be there. John. Yes. Pardon me?
It's a public meeting.
Yes, anybody can attend. However, none of the members of the Marine Advisory Board will be able to address the P and Z board other than Steve.
and just as a comment, since recently, every time I've been, the physical location they're in is wicked small. That's my Bostonian coming out. And so if more than 2 people extras try to show up, you're standing in the hallway, sticking your head
I have
in.
not been to a P and Z meeting under the new circumstance. Where are they holding it?
I forget the name of the location, but it was like I've never been there, planning and zoning. I forget where it is, but it was a room much smaller than this.
Really?
And, you couldn't walk behind the chairs,
I
so
had a
we had to
vision of the
be,
old city hall.
yeah, no, yeah, so
Okay.
it was, you have to be prepared and, making a
I think maybe I'll attend this
presentation.
Forthcoming P and Z meeting.
Yeah, you may also want to find out about what they'll do for presentation, because when we were there for our meeting, there was no ability to do a presentation. We had to have paper copies.
Thank you.
And so, yeah, so I wanted to share that with you.
And I have to admit, I'm a rookie at this aspect of it. I've attended P and Z board meetings and I've been the attorney for the P and Z board. That was many, many years ago. I've never been the one to bring an issue to them. I'm working pretty much hand in glove with Arlene and Jim Hens on this.
And I will tell you, they seem very willing to ask good questions, so they're open.
They're both good people.
Yeah,
I think we will here.
Right, if you need some kind of graphics for the river or any of that stuff I presented, you need something bigger, let me know, I'll come up with something for you. Just let me know if you need graphics.
Maybe a board,
Yeah.
at least a board.
Well, actually, I've got probably 10 river sections.
Yeah.
You want, one of those like blown up, or like,
Well, we'll do that, but you can send it to John and I, and
Okay.
we can work with that. That's.
oh, okay, I'll send you some graphics. All right, thank you.
I just have a suggestion of just taking out all those minutes. Don't want to continue about with it, but One thing that I wrote in the thing is that this last. That Rubik survey, or however you pronounce it, was 2011. When this one comes, the new one, we should try to make it so that one can overlay the other.
Okay.
And the reason I suggest it is because between 2011 and now. There's more docks, there's more boats, there's different sized boats and things like that. And it would be a proof in the pudding of the constriction of the river. It would show the changes in the rivers to where somebody that's on P and Z or whoever doesn't, they don't get it. But you can say, look, it's almost like looking at the global warming of the polar ice caps throughout the year. And it'll just bring them right into the, to get what you guys are trying to explain.
Do you think that can be accomplished by the second week in December?
Well, you could actually do it on Google Earth map, for example, you could go look at a section.
You may be able to, but I sure can't.
Scale back 2011.
You can go back.
And same thing, the resolution.
But it could be done within that time frame.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay,
Side by side.
thank you, John. Thank you, Bob. I gotta move this along. Start to freeze here. Old business, new business. Boat show, we talked about, resounding success. Tim?
It was good.
Yeah, I thought it was great. Great weather, the convention center was packed, the public transportation, I hope you all availed yourself of that, was terrific. Patience, phenomenal job. Congratulations, Emma. I know you did. And you have no problem taking the compliment. On some new business, couple questions I have. We have, obviously, again, talked about the Christmas boat parade coming up sooner than later. Not really an area of concern to us, but something that we want to be aware of. FEC Railroad Bridge was on my notes to talk about. I don't really think there's anything to discuss there, other than my comments that no matter what happens on the New River with respect to the waivers and et cetera, unless we resolve a problem with the bridge, we still have a problem in the New River. So you're all aware of what the mayor wants to do, et cetera. If anybody has any comments, feel free to share them. There was a message that we had on here on the agenda that said MAB member reintroduction. We're going to pull that. That was a request actually that Bill Walker made through Andrew, that a number of us don't know each other. We've been on the board, et cetera. So Bill apparently wasn't able to make it. So we will do this on another meeting. It's a great idea. So we're going to table that for the moment. I had a couple other things that I'll share real quickly. One, I'm real excited that the mayor is going to attend our December meeting. He's coming for the second half of the meeting, which is really great. We'll get through our business stuff, et cetera. A great opportunity. When he's been here, he always is shares great conversation. It's a great time to share what's going on with the moratorium, ask poignant questions, et cetera. So thrilled to find out he's going to join us. I do reach out to each of the 5 commissioners after each of the meetings and share what's going on. And the reception has been generally positive. So I do, as we go forward, we'll try to have other commissioners join us. It's some of it's self-serving, obviously, because some are running for re-election, but I think it's great to hear from them. Anybody else share some old new business for us? So everybody wants to get home for dinner. You want to make that? I'm going to bring up something just because it was mentioned. I don't know if I can do this, Patience. There was a discussion about Harry V being forced to relocate their boat. Asked to relocate the boat. I only bring that up because I look at boats like the Carrie V as kind of a part of the community here. So I don't know what's going to happen, and I'm probably talking out of place. But if you all hear about this, there's so many on the New River that, again, get overshadowed by the fancy yachts that said, for a guy like Dave Jordan, right?
Yeah.
The Caribbean. Yeah. These guys are salt to the earth and they work real hard. So, you know, just if you see them, let them know that we're thinking of them. And again, if it comes up, that's something that I'm very concerned about, making sure that we take care of our folks. Please.
The only thing you missed was the approval of our minutes from last meeting. You skipped right over that when you went to.
Did I really?
Yeah,
That's a minor detail.
I just wanted to point it out.
What's
Make a
really,
motion.
what's really interesting is Andrew would have pointed it out. I assume everybody read the meetings from last
Test
month.
night, test night.
Just because she did bring it up. Does anybody have any questions or comments from?
So I'll motion to approve it.
Motion on, do we have a second, please?
Second.
Do we all approve?
Aye.
Thank you. Does anybody have any further old new business or anything else? I wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving. It's hard to believe we're at that point already. Look forward to seeing everybody on the 7th. Meeting adjourned.
There we go.
What's the date on the next?